It's time for Real Talk with Brian and Dan, the weekly talk radio show dedicated to discussing important real estate topics, plus insight into the local community. With a combined experience of over 50 years as local real estate brokers from the East Side Real Estate Team at Keller Williams Realty Bellevue. Here's your hosts, Brian Levitt and Dan Edwards.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Real Talk with Brian and Dan on 1150 KKNW. It is Wednesday, September 25th. Happy first week of fall, Brian. Did you know it's fall officially?
It is.
Yeah.
It felt like it a little early this year, but hey, here
no
it is.
Indian summer or anything like that. Well, that's all right. We'll do great. Hey, we appreciate everybody listening to our show. If you are interested, you can download our podcasts on all the spots where podcasts are casted. So iPodcast, ePodcast, BPodcast, TuneIn, all those, wherever they are.
Wherever they're potted.
Yeah. Do you use a podcast app, Brian?
I do.
Which one?
I don't remember. I just clicked on
podcast and go.
Googled it and boom, clicked in there.
Google has a podcast one that I like using.
Nice.
So, yeah. Anyhow, today we have a great show. We've got Mike Markert, CPA with Mike Markert, CPA, and Grant Monson of Altera Advisors. But, of course, before we get started with our guest, we've got some time for Real Talk.
Yes, we do. Today, we're going to discuss what new home buyers need to know about HOAs. That's Homeowners Associations. When searching for a home, you may end up selecting a property in a community with the Homeowners Association. Before you buy, it's important to know how an HOA works and what they mean for you. Simply put, an HOA ensures that your community looks its best and functions smoothly.
Yeah, I think it's important, Brian, when, kind of going over the HOA portion of purchasing a home, is there are homes that are parts of HOAs and there are condos that are part of HOAs.
Right.
A little different on each one, right?
Correct.
The HOA is governed by a board nominated by those living in a neighborhood. It's designed to make sure that residents have support, structure. They maintain the value of the community while abiding by set guidelines, like painting a home a certain color, right? That's one thing.
Right.
Making sure some HOAs will have lawn restrictions, like what you can do in the front. Mm-hmm. And so what we're talking about there, Brian, is the HOAs that are a part of a housing community.
Right.
How common would you say that is on the east side?
I'd say it's pretty common. A lot of the older neighborhoods don't have them, or they've stopped functioning, which there's times when people just don't care anymore.
Right. So where would somebody find out whether or not their house is in a HOA governed community?
That's disclosed in the listing. So when we're showing buyers, we always tell them if there is an HOA that governs the property and if it's an active HOA.
Right. So, now, is there a difference between HOA and CC&Rs or covenants?
The CC&Rs are a governing document that explain the rules. You think of it as like the bylaws that, but CC&Rs, covenants, codes, and restrictions pretty much outline what you can and can't do and what the consequences are. And HOAs vary so much. I've got a rental in an HOA that's super strict, which as an owner, I like because it really maintains the quality of the neighborhood.
So what do you mean they're strict?
Well, an example is if you leave your garbage can out overnight after it's picked up, you're going to get a letter. Fined. You're going to get fined if you don't correct it immediately.
Oh, I see.
And, personally, I wouldn't want to live there, but I like the fact that I've got a rental there that's really well maintained.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's about maintaining the value.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, well, I want to buy a house. I want to do what I want to do wherever I want to do it.
Right.
Well, that's true in some cases, but people want to try and maintain some kind of congruency.
Yeah. Well, and here's something, too, is as a buyer, you can request a copy of the HOA minutes and look and see, are they finding people? Because you can request records to know what the temperament is of the HOA.
See if it's Machiavellian. Yeah. Did I say that word? That's a hard word to say.
Yeah.
Right? Because, sometimes you get into a place and maybe it's not the comfort level that you're with.
Right.
And, one way to definitely determine is through the HOA. So here's an interesting statistic, Brian, is according to a Realtor.com article, more and more people are becoming part of an HOA. It says since the 1970s, it was 1%. Now it's about 25% that are actually homes and people living in HOA communities.
Yeah. Well, they do protect the quality of the neighborhood by having those guidelines. So there is a plus. But for me, it's like I have chickens, and most HOAs don't like people
with
having
chickens?
barnyards in their backyards.
Well.
And so I like living in a place where it's pretty low key.
Yeah.
But that also means that there's times when I've had neighbors that aren't maintaining their properties particularly well.
Right. So tell me about the differences. So what about a condo with an HOA and the differences between various condos with HOAs?
The unique thing with condos is you typically have common areas. Most single-family homes with HOAs, there might be very limited common area, but condos tend to have much more common area. Parking lots, entrances, clubhouses, swimming pools. And so part of
Secure
the HOA,
features, right? Secure.
Yeah, part of that is paying for the maintenance. So your HOA dues will cover the maintenance of those common areas.
A common complaint that I will get from folks that are looking sometimes for their first-time home is they're like, I don't want to. What? This is extra wasted money. Why do I want to spend this extra money?
Oh my! I did a market analysis for a client recently that has a HOA that's in free fall. There's a number of owners that are friends that basically took over the board and have eliminated homeowners dues. So that sounds great, right? Because their dues normally were, $300-400 a month. They're down to like less than $100 a month.
How's the complex?
It's good now, but it's going to be in decline.
Right.
And so what's going to happen is, I think, number one, they're opening themselves up for liability. They're going to get sued by somebody, because what's happening is over time, there's not going to be reserve funds to pay when the roof needs
change
to be
the roof,
repaired.
Change the windows.
Yeah, there's no money in there.
Yeah, that's
and
silly.
So I think it's very short-sighted.
So how does a buyer protect themselves from buying into a location where the HOA may be in danger?
Dan, such a good question.
I know.
Under Washington law, a buyer buying into a condo receives what's called, if it's a resale condo, they receive a resale certificate. If it's new, they receive what's called a public offering statement. The state law requires the seller to deliver these documents. If the seller doesn't, the buyer has options to terminate the transaction.
What are these documents?
It's all the meeting minutes, the financial statements, any studies that have been done to determine if the reserves, like reserve studies.
You get a peek into the quality of how well it's managed.
And often this is a 200 or 300 page document that I like to encourage people to read every page. They don't do it, but I go
They
through
do
the
have a
highlights
summary
with them.
and have the highlights.
They have the summary and read the financial statements. An example, I mentioned the condo where they're not collecting enough money. It'd be really easy to look at that and say, wow, they don't have reserves. Healthy condo, often I'll see $200,000-300,000 in reserve accounts.
Yeah, the way I like to think about the financial commitment for a buyer is they're getting the value in having a payment plan for future deferred maintenance.
Right.
That if you were owning a home, you'd be paying for garbage disposal, you'd be paying for the roof, the gutters when they needed it.
Right.
So you're kind of doing this in advance. Sometimes you recognize the value because you're going to stay in the place for years, and other times it's just future value that keeps that future value. So when it's time for the buyer to buy the property, it's going to be in good shape.
And the consequence too is a seller in a poorly run HOA, a seller is often stuck with a huge assessment to catch up those funds. And trust me, buyers don't like paying for funds that should have been in the account already. Now, a buyer buying in a single-family type HOA can request all those documents as well.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of benefits, obviously relying on a great real estate agent to help you sort through that. That's why we're here. So if you have any questions about your HOA, or about buying a home or a condo that's in an HOA, feel free to reach out to the Eastside Real Estate team.
Perfect. After our break, we'll be talking to our guest for the week. First up will be Mike Markert with Mike Markert CPA, who will be discussing taxes and accounting, resolving issues, how, and going forward. We'll be right back.
Right back.
Not sure if now is the right time to sell? Worried you missed the market? The Eastside Real Estate team specializes in helping homeowners maximize their equity when selling. With our proven premier listing service, our clients have sold their homes for more money in less time than the competition. We know you have many choices when working with a real estate agent, but with the Eastside Real Estate team, you get a team of highly qualified, experienced agents. From staging to deciding if your property is market ready for top dollar. If you're considering selling, call the Eastside Real Estate team at 425-200-4093. Or check out our website at the eastsiderealestateteam.com, a subsidiary of Keller Williams Realty in Bellevue.